The year is 1987 and a new Bond. In The Living Daylights and License to Kill, Cubby Broccoli wanted to reconnect with some of the original facets of Bond as written by Ian Fleming. The man he chose to embody that change. Welcome, please, Timothy Dalton.
Timothy Dalton was officially cast as Ian Fleming's James Bond on the 6th of August 1986, thus becoming the fourth actor to play 007 in an Eon production. The story of how he got the role could be a film in itself, as has so often been the case with the casting of the part. Roger's rolling contract had come to a happy end with A View to a Kill. He'd made 7 films, and even he felt he was now too old for the role. But he left a huge legacy for whoever came next to continue. Timothy was first approached way back in 1969, after Sean Connery had ended his relationship with producers. Back then we didn't know if anyone else could play 007, and so plenty of actors were considered. He was only in his early 20s, and so he felt too young to take over for On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
I was much too young, but don't forget, Connery was so damn good. You know, it would have been a bit dumb to take over from Connery, I think. I'd got a good career going in movies as a young man with Lion in Winter and Wuthering Heights and Mary Queen of Scots. To follow Connery was not a good idea.
Fast forward to 1986, and he was now 40 and ready to go. But it wasn't so simple. Pierce Brosnan had signed on and was even unveiled for the papers. Contractual obligations to Remington Steele, though, dashed his hopes, for a decade at least, meaning the opportunity was there for Tim to finally accept. By then, the producers had already begun production on The Living Daylights, and so Tim had little time to prepare. Thankfully, he was a Fleming scholar and wanted to bring his own interpretation of the character.
I intend to approach this project with a sense of responsibility to the work of Ian Fleming. I think the essential quality of James Bond is that he's a man who lives on the edge. You never know, he never knows when at any moment he might be killed. Therefore, I think some of the qualities we associate with Bond, the qualities we've seen in this series of movies, the qualities that Ian Fleming wrote so well about, reflect that sense of danger in his own life. We know that he drinks. Lines like shaken, not stirred reflect that sense of drinking. We know he smokes. We know he likes to drive fast cars. I think the qualities of the man are the qualities of a man who is living very much on the edge of his life.
Despite initial concerns that his darker, more serious take on Bond would jar with audiences who had become so used to Roger, the film was a big hit. This prompted filmmakers to ensure his second film, License to Kill, would be tailored to Tim. This was Bond at his darkest. Avenging the maiming of Felix and the death of his wife, his path to revenge saw graphic violence and a higher rating. A box office disappointment, though, followed by years of legal wrangling behind the camera, put a premature end to Dalton's reign. We met up with a team of fans to guide you through his all-too-brief tenure as James Bond, looking at both his films before deciding on his legacy. He and his movies are now very highly regarded and often voted as amongst the best in the whole franchise, and certainly influenced the Daniel Craig era to come. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Really 007 podcast, and tonight we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to do a retrospective of Timothy Dalton as James Bond. Now, we've already done one of these before for Daniel Craig, but we just thought to coincide more or less with the 80th birthday of the Welsh actor. Can you believe he's that old? I can't. But yeah, we just thought we'd honour him. And we don't really talk about him much on this podcast, so I thought we needed some bonus episodes. That's a joke if you haven't heard us before. We've done loads. And I've got some familiar faces with me tonight and some other ones who are big Dalton fans to chat about it. So it's not a review per se. It's not like an anniversary special one where we just talk everything through. This is a place where I hope everyone's going to be positive. We did our best for the Daniel Craig one. I think we're on safer ground here. I can agree with most of the faces I'm seeing here tonight. But I'll just introduce everybody from our own podcast. We've got John.
Good evening.
John, thankfully, when we met him, one of the first things we bonded over was James Bond, and then Timothy Dalton was fairly close second, I would have thought.
Absolutely. That and Majesty's Secret Service. And
Yes, yeah.
so we knew that we were friends for life, really. Yeah.
And then, yeah, we started this. And we haven't shut up about Dalton since. Anyway, right, Math. Good evening to you, Math.
Good evening. Good evening.
We'll have many tales to tell about growing up with Dalton.
Yep, absolutely.
And we'll link that in, actually, with, well, it was our older brother who probably got us into it all. And he, of course, went to school with Glenn, one of our guests tonight, Glenn Standish.
He did. You're referring to James Pickup.
I am, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we got on pretty well, actually. But I don't think once during our time at school did we even mention James Bond.
I can't remember whether he told us that you were a Bond fan or you
I
told.
must have mentioned it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Probably subconsciously,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, somehow he got us in touch with each other because we haven't even met, have we, Tom?
No, it's still not met in real life. No.
No.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Glenn, though, he's been doing some good work for the channel, I will tell you recently. He's done a Key West location visit, which, of course, is probably the first third of the film, isn't it? For License to Kill. And it's all on location, pretty much, the whole first third of it. That was
interesting. Key West, all those locations are pretty close, with each other. I mean, obviously the big stretch of highway is, a bit away, but yeah, everything else is very walkable.
Oh, we'll come on to that because locations form quite a big part of these two films and very, very different films in that sense. Right, our next guest, who's already been on many, many times, is Steve. Now, Steve Clamp is another guy who we bonded over Bond and bonded over with Dalton, didn't we, Steve?
Yeah, do you know, it was great meeting you guys because I've always loved Dalton. I'm sure we'll go into that more later. But I felt, before realizing there was this whole community out there, thinking I was a bit of a lone wolf. I had a mate who was keen on him, but I was the real one banging the drum. And then I met you guys, and I remember when I first talked to you, I couldn't believe that so many of you had License to Kill as your favorite film. I was the only one in the world. So it was great. And I think the last podcast I did with you guys was Quantum of Solace, which is about 300 hours long.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe I've earned my place here on the Dalton.
Yes.
Yeah. This is my reward.
It is, Steve, yeah. It's a shame you won't be on for, I don't know, a tenth of the time you were on for that one over many, many months. But yes. And we have had, I think the first one you were on was, we did the music of Living Daylights. That might have been one of the first ones you were on.
It could have been. I mean, gosh, it must be. It was around about the time when COVID first came along.
Yeah, it's 5 years ago now, I think.
Yeah. It's been a long time. So it's been great. I've loved every minute. And this is a real special one today.
It is, yeah, it is. And if you, like I say, if you're fairly new to listening to the podcast, if you start from the beginning, Dalton is probably the running theme of the entire thing, if there is such a thing. And another incredible guest we've got here who's been here a few times, but, like a few years in between each appearance, I think, for Dr. Carey Edwards, the author of the incredible book, He Disagreed with Something That Ate Him, which, of course, is a reference to the film License to Kill and the Fleming book Live and Let Die. So double whammy there. What a guy, Carey. Great to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm going to get you to introduce me wherever I go. That's brilliant. My wife, she can't hear us. She's not laughing in the background, is she? Yeah, and actually, I used the title "He Disagreed with Something That Ate Him." Obviously, that reference, but also, and we may come to this as a reflection on how Dalton felt about the incredible amount of fame that comes with being James Bond, and I'm sure we'll talk about that and his sort of legacy, as it were. But Yeah, we will talk about this, but if you compare, say, Dalton to Pierce Brosnan loves being a movie star. That man adores it.
Yeah.
Timothy Dalton, I think, is an actor who kind of became a movie star with James Bond, and that's something that no doubt we'll think about. But yeah, no, it's good to be back. I'm a little offended if you don't ask me back more, honestly. But well, you know.
And not just for Dalton stuff, but he
Yeah,
literally wrote
I'll have an opinion on anything, and but just don't get me started on No Time to Die, because it'll just
yeah. I think we did enough back then.
my head will explode. Yeah.
Our final guest tonight, Kathleen, has a few No Time to Die posters in the background. Now she's already put something over that because she's put a lovely poster from The Living Daylights, which is one of the best posters I think in the whole series. But great to have you with us, Kathleen, and your debut on Really 007.
Yeah, thank you, I'm really excited to be here. Also, listening to some of the podcasts, I feel like I'm probably maybe the only one on this call or on this podcast that prefers The Living Daylights over License to Kill, but you never know, right? No, I actually love Tim's movies, and I'm not entirely sure, but I think like the intro, the opening sequence to The Living Daylights is possibly like the best opening sequence in the whole series.
We did a series on the pre-title sequences, and it won, didn't it? I think
it did win. And Kathleen, you've got no problem saying you prefer Living Daylights over. It's like comparing Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool with Pep Guardiola's Man City. We're talking absolute top tier of both. So.
I have no clue what you're talking about, other than that it's probably something football related.
Yeah, football analogy there, but yeah. And Kathleen, you live in Belgium. That's right, isn't it?
I am living in Belgium. Yes. So I've seen you. I may have seen some of the others at the Cue the Music London events, because I've been there every time when they're playing in London, and I'll visit again this time. But yeah, I'm over regularly, as in once a year.
Yeah, that is so good to see you, and it's great to see that people travelling all that way just for Bond. But so what's Bond like in Belgium? How popular is he?
To be fair, it really depends. Now, I've met my like the biggest Bond fan I know. I've met him in London, following Philip Latchford around London visiting locations, and we started talking to each other. And he said, "Well, where are you coming from?" I said, "Belgium," and he said, "Oh, me too." So I hadn't met any real Bond fan in Belgium before. Now, honestly, I wasn't really looking, so it's not that there are none. And over the time now, I've come into contact with a couple of people, but it is very different, I imagine, from growing up in the UK. And especially I feel sort of as a very small minority, not only not from the UK or not from an English speaking country, but also female. Where there's not a lot of, when I go to Cue the Music, usually it's the wives that have been dragged there by their husbands, whereas I've dragged my husband a couple of times to come along. Unfortunately, though, he loved football, so he didn't really catch on with the wives on talking points. So,
well, next time we see you, if he's there, we'll talk football with him. My word.
Well, unfortunately, he won't be there because we are no longer married. But,
sorry, right? Oh gosh, right.
No, that's okay. That's okay. You didn't know, but
because he couldn't get on board with James Bond.
Obviously, yes. Obvious. It's a fatal error.
Yeah, well, and Glenn, you're in Poland now. You're living in Poland. Obviously, you're from England. But what's Bond? How popular is Bond over there?
It is pretty popular. I mean, whenever the James Bond premiere comes out in the cinema, it's packed. It's crowded. But yeah, I think TikTok generation now, let's be honest, probably not so interested. I mean, my 17-year-old stepson He doesn't really care much about James Bond.
Yeah.
So, and also, it's going to be a long break, isn't it, between the last one and hopefully the new one, whenever it's going to be released. We're talking what, like 7, 8 years, maybe even longer. So long time. Yeah.
It's a shame, isn't it? But we will now go into the entree, the starter of the discussion, the sort of the unveiling of Tim as Bond. Now we won't go into all the details, but it was another complicated one. Him and Pierce had. I mean, you could actually write a book on both of them. Carey sort of did, but yeah. I wanted to start with Glenn though, because Glenn, you sent me some photos today of you. How you were pretty young, weren't you? But you saw
10
it at
years
the
old.
cinema. You were how old?
Yeah. I literally discovered them last week because bless my mum, she's got Alzheimer's. She just moved to a care home, and I was going through the house. It's not a nice experience, clearing the house, going through things, and I discovered some photos. And lo and behold, there was two of them of me, aged 10, outside the local, I think it was the Cannon Cinema on Tunbridge Wells. Sadly, it's long gone now, it's been demolished. And you could just make out on the left, there was the poster, the brilliant poster, the best poster of all of them,
Yeah.
of the Living Daylights. And then, in the old days, they used to have like the stills of the movies outside to try to like attract people in. This is before the days of the internet and stuff. And you could see some of the posters stills from the Living Daylights. It was in screen 3, so I reckon it was probably towards the end of its release. It would have been really originally on screen 1. And yeah, I couldn't believe it. There's me, age 10, standing. Obviously, I was, when it first came out, it was the second James Bond movie I ever saw in the cinema, the first one being Octopussy. And it really captivated my attention. I remember seeing the posters in the foyer, the stands of, Timothy Dalton, and thinking that it says, the new James Bond, and it's like the 15th film. And I was like, who on earth is this guy? Because obviously I was used to Roger Moore, Octopus. At age 10, you didn't really realize the concept that suddenly there's going to be a new James Bond actor. But I think I went at least 4 or 5 times, age 10, to the cinema, including one time on my own. That's how much my parents trusted me to go and watch the film on my own. And I was talking to you about this earlier. Now, it is quite a deep movie, The Living Daylights. It is quite complicated, with all KGB and all this. And age 10, I don't know if I actually fully understood what was going on.
We
but I
still don't,
love
Glenn.
the action. Yeah, it's still quite complicated, isn't it, Tom?
Yeah.
To be honest. But I mean, the action was just superb. It just captivated me. I absolutely loved it.
James had our brother James had those stickers that you could get. I don't know whether
Yeah,
some of them were with
I had them
trio
as well.
biscuits.
Yeah,
Yeah,
from some cereal, I think, some
yeah.
breakfast cereal. Yeah,
And he
yeah.
had them on his bedroom door, and there was like ones of the car coming out of the barn on the ice when it was exploding. There was one of the baddie milkmen, as we called him, with a gun,
Oh, yeah.
thing. And then he did have those "A View to a Kill" posters from Smith's Crisps, but that's another story. Uh, and was anyone else around? Steve, did you
Yeah.
see it? You did, didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, it was the second Bond film I saw at the cinema. Unlike Glenn, for me, it was A View to a Kill was first, and then The Daylights. I mean, I don't remember vividly seeing it. My memory is terrible of my childhood. I always have to ask my brother, who's older than me. His memory is much better of our childhood. It was License to Kill that really hit me. I was 13 when I saw License to Kill at the cinema. That was the first time I'd ever been to see anything at the cinema, and I'd been utterly blown away by it. I mean, all I could think about for weeks afterwards was that film. And I guess maybe I just hadn't developed very much. Maybe, as Glenn said, I simply didn't understand the Living Daylights. I don't know. I certainly enjoyed it, because I would have negative memories if I didn't. But I don't remember being absolutely blown away. And I think it was the same with View to a Kill. I kind of just went with 2 hours of fun, enjoyed it, went home, did something else. But it was License to Kill, age 13, was for me the turning point. And then it was then that I went back and watched the Daylights again, and I absolutely loved it. But yes, so I did. But I don't have photos, Glenn. I don't have photos to
No,
bring.
but still, I was just going to. How do you watch License to Kill at age 13 when it was actually a 15 classification?
I'm 6'5", so by the time I was 13, I was already 6 foot, and I went with my mum and my nan. And I imagine they probably didn't think my mum and nan looked too corrupt, so they probably thought, oh, he must be 15.
So I saw age 12 in the cinema in Bangkok, of all places.
Whoa!
Yeah, because obviously I wasn't allowed to see it in the UK. And we were actually on holiday at the time in Thailand. And I remember my dad taking me to the cinema, and it was so exciting. I felt so excited because I was only 12, 3 years before I could see it for real life. It was
Oh,
amazing. Although I
another
must
Bond
admit, I did
connection.
hide behind my hands a little bit
Yeah.
at
I
the
do remember
scary
the
bits.
nerves,
Yeah.
Glenn, as a 13-year-old. Will I get, it's the first time I'd been to see something as an underage person, and I did think being with my mum and my nan would help, but I did have, it kind of added a little excitement. I'm sure it did
Yeah.
for you as
Yeah,
well.
definitely.
Kerry, you weren't old enough to see.
Well, bless you. No, I wasn't. But no, VHS. So first Bond film I saw was GoldenEye, and sort of
Yeah.
I that summer of '89, which was an incredible blockbuster summer. I saw pretty much everything except License to Kill because of the certificate, because I was 10 and I wasn't 6 foot, so there was no way I was getting in. Seen The Living Daylights on VHS, seen the Roger Moores a lot on VHS, particularly the John Glenn Roger Moores. So I kind of discovered License to Kill and really got into Daylights in that period in the '90s where there were no Bond movies, and that's where we discovered them. And of course, it's only later where you get to watch them, the Prince Charles, properly. You realise actually the versions we had on VHS and TV chopped out so much of the image. ITV still do it with License to Kill. They gut it because they want to show it at 6 o'clock in the afternoon or the evening.
Don't be too hard on ITV. We've got Steve here.
No, I know.
Try not to comment at this point.
No, but that's one of the interesting things because License to Kill is different. It's not as friendly. I'm sure we'll talk about that as some of the other movies. So it was VHS, but what VHS does is it lets you watch and then rewatch the cool bits like the opening of License to Kill, which I loved then and I still love now. And so you can really get to obsess over them, which I did.
Absolutely amazing. And for those of you who were around at that time, what were your sort of thoughts on the casting of Timothy Dalton? And was it quite jarring because you knew Roger? I know Glenn's mentioned that briefly, but Kathleen, what did you? I mean,
Well,
again,
I was, I think, born when the filming of The Living Daylights started. You
Yeah.
had the interview with Mariam Dabo, and she said they started filming October '86,
yeah,
something like that. So I'm born in November '86.
oh, okay, yeah,
Officially, you could say that Tim is my first Bond.
yeah,
He was Bond when I was born. But obviously, I haven't seen him in cinemas. The World Is Not Enough is the one I saw first. Um, well,
brilliant,
exactly.
brilliant.
Yeah. And so I have no recollection being an infant of what Bond was like. I saw him like most people my age. I saw him on VHS, and because my dad actually introduced me to James Bond. At some point when I was 10-ish, I guess, he decided it was time for me to watch a James Bond movie because in Belgium do show them on TV regularly, but not as regularly, I imagine, as in the UK. And so obviously, well, my first Bond was Roger Moore because my dad loved Roger more than he loved Sean Connery or Timothy Dalton because he grew up with Roger Moore. And in fact, then Tim was my fourth Bond because I first saw Moore, then Connery, then Brosnan, and then Dalton. And I wasn't allowed to watch License to Kill because my dad didn't like the movie and he thought it was way too violent for a young girl to watch. So the first one I did see was The Living Daylights, and I immediately loved it. I love everything about them, about The Living Daylights.
So good to hear this. Absolutely brilliant. John. Obviously, our first Bond films were the Pierce Brosnan ones, really, that we can properly remember at the cinema.
Yeah.
So was he just like another Bond to you growing up?
Yeah, I think I've shared this story before, but I'll never forget that my first ever recollection of Timothy Dalton was actually turning on ITV on a Saturday night to watch License to Kill. So I am the complete anomaly where everybody goes on about License to Kill was hardly ever on an ITV or it's chopped and stuff. I was one of the few people that first ever saw it on a Saturday night, about 9 o'clock. And I vividly remember my dad turning to me and saying, yeah, he wasn't a very good Bond. You won't. Uh, and I remember watching it and being utterly blown away. And I was like, 13-year-old me, I just remember just telling my dad, you're just wrong. You know,
He was.
wrong. And I got, so straight away for my birthday, I was like, I want License to Kill. I want License to Kill on video. Watched it. It immediately became my number one James Bond film. Possibly some of that was because at 13 I thought it was hard that I had a 15 certificate, but I loved the harder edge of it. And it was about a year after I watched Living Daylights and was so struck at how different it was, but loved it just as much. And it's exclusively because of Timothy Dalton. Both of them, I was captivated by this guy, which is quite ironic because in a lot of ways he's probably deliberately trying to be the least captivating of the James Bonds. He's trying to blend in more as a spy and giving other people a platform to perform. But I genuinely think Dalton is, well, I'll say it now. I think he's the best actor to have ever played James Bond, and I think he gives the best portrayal of James Bond as well, the most human portrayal, and he's like an onion. Like there's every time I watch him, there's a new layer that I learn to appreciate from his performance. But I think you hit it spot on, Kerry, when you said he's an actor who didn't feel comfortable in that stardom. I think that that's the irony of it, really, that he perfected the part but felt so uncomfortable with the fame. But to me, that adds to his legend now.
Yeah. I think we've also said, haven't we, John, and we'll probably touch on it later, that even if he'd made one or two more, 91, 93, it's unlikely they could be as good as these two. So maybe it's a perfect sort of storm, isn't it?
It's a catch-22 because it is like, yes, I can't see them being as good. And Mark Edlitz's book is brilliant. I love that book about the third and fourth Bond films. And I know there'd have been a lot through the edit and all the rest of it, but
Yeah.
the plot of the third one doesn't fill me with confidence of what they were going with. But however much I feel that, I so wish we had it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, Math, the two Daltons growing up were very different for us because I actually did see Living Daylights at the cinema, but I must have been 4 or 5. I can barely remember it. But James, of course, took me in Helmshire. Amazingly, Glenn, I can't believe they had a no, in Rottenstall. They had a cinema in Rottenstall, which is incredible to think of now. One of
I
the
miss these old picture houses.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
miss them.
The
Oh,
building's still there, but
yeah.
it's not been used for years, has it, Math? But
No, no.
I think that might have been possibly the first film I ever saw at the cinema. And the big thing though was we got it on video. We actually bought it. All the other ones we had were recorded off ITV. So that was the thing growing up. That was in heavy rotation. But the other thing was that we just couldn't get hold of License to Kill. So that gave it this sort of myth, didn't it? Where we're obsessed with
Yeah,
with Living Daylights, but there's another one which we're desperate to watch.
yeah. So obviously, yeah, having Living Daylights on the official VHS was really, really nice. So, whereas all the other ones were recorded from ITV, and so when we came to watch the DVD and stuff, there was bits that had been cut out that we'd not seen before. Whereas Living Daylights, we'd always seen the full version. Um, but yeah, License to Kill, we we were obviously aware of it. Obviously, maybe Dad knew that it was a bit more violent, so it wasn't immediately one that we had access to. And then when we did finally get it recorded, it was only recorded from when Sanchez goes into the water in the the police. So we hadn't seen the start of it, and then it on the run of Bond films on one of the ITV runs, back to back every Wednesday night or whatever it was, Wednesday, Saturday, or however they did it. This will sound incredibly dark, so forgive me. When it came to License to Kill, I think, sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
I remember this.
I think it was the time of the Dunblane killings. So I think that they didn't show License to Kill, so therefore we missed the opportunity to record it and have it. And then we were on holiday when they eventually did then show it, and so we missed out again. So we never had. I'm not sure we ever had a full recorded version of it. It was only when we got them all on DVD that we had that. Is that right, Tom? Do you?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. And
That would have been
I remember the
1996.
Dunblane, yeah.
Dunblane
Right.
was 96.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it
think
was,
that-
yeah.
So it's a 40th anniversary, so it does
Yeah.
kind of make sense, yeah.
I don't know why we couldn't buy that one. I mean, they were more expensive then, weren't they? And when they came out, 2-for-1.
30th anniversary, sorry, I can't
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2-for-1 Woolworths was, I think, when we bought them all. Didn't we?
Yeah. On the video. Yeah.
Yeah, the side.
Oh, yeah.
I do actually remember renting it. We rented it when we were in the Cotswolds because
Right,
James, again, to link in with Glenn, James was at school there. So when we went to visit
Being
him,
close, yeah.
yeah, we rented it from Chipping Camden at the, I can't, was it like the post office or somewhere?
Yeah, something like that. Spa
It
or...
was so difficult to get hold of videos around there, but we rented it. Can you remember that, Math? But you were probably pretty young, weren't you?
Possibly, yeah. It does.
Yeah, in fact, if it was just come out on video, you can't have been old enough to. Yeah,
I know. Yeah.
But I again, a bit like Steve and John, I had that experience where this is the greatest thing I've ever seen, and the fact that it was more violent made me think, goodness me. And James bigged it up so much. A bit like the Batman 1989, it was just too magical to, and then you couldn't see it for years, so that was even more magical. But I think over the years, both of them, how some films, not Bond films for us, when you see them as an adult, you're like, oh, they weren't quite as good as you remember. But these, they just get better, perhaps. They're just
Cannonball Run, definitely not as good all these years.
I'm sorry.
Just going back to when you couldn't get the videos, by the way, I remember them releasing a series of them in the mid to late 90s, and they were staggered, the releases. They didn't put them all out at once, and there were one or two, because I was collecting them, that took forever to get released, and I don't doubt License to Kill was perhaps one of those, so that might be why you struggled so long. I remember thinking at the time, just from a commercial point of view, why haven't they just put them all out so people can buy a set? But they weren't. They were staggering the release, like every couple of months another one would come out.
Yeah.
You had no way of knowing when they were going to come. So that could have been it. There was a few that took forever to get released.
Yeah, I think you're right, aren't they? Or they were only ever out for a very limited period.
Yeah.
Because the Living Daylights one we had was on that, it was like black and blue, the cover, and it had the sort of gun barrel logo on it, and it was in a different font. They didn't marry up.
So the casting for me of Timothy Dalton is one of the great all-time moments in the James Bond cinematic franchise, but also in the history of the relationship between the original Fleming novels and the Bond cinematic world as we know it. You knew it straight from the outset that in that very first press conference that the source material was taken so seriously by its central actor, and his reverence for it was so strong and so obvious, and he spoke so eloquently about it. I don't think at that point in time it could have been, gone into any better hands or anything like that. And let's think this is well before, what became a cinematic mainstay in the noughties and 2010s, teens, whatever they call it, was when you were to make cinematic franchises super serious. So, Batman getting serious and then Bond itself getting serious again with Daniel Craig. This had all been done many years before, in the late 80s or the second half of the 80s, in 87 with Dalton's casting in Living Daylights. And it's just, it was so ahead of its time. Everything about this take was so ahead of its time. And this was back when Bond was doing things before anyone else did, of course. You know, back when Bond was the benchmark for cinematic achievement, which, you know, it isn't now. It's the other way around. Bond is now just another one of the, up to this point, another one of the sheep that sort of follows, which is a real sadness. Yeah, I think this was so ahead of its time, but the casting was brilliant. And you couldn't pick someone who looked the part more than Timothy Dalton. And again, you have to take it back to if you want to talk about the source material, you have to take it back to the original description of James Bond, which was sort of the two words that often get mentioned are dark and cruel. Certainly in descriptions of Bond by Fleming, and you couldn't get darker or cruel looking than Timothy Dalton at that time. And I think that was, a lot of people are amazed. I find this amazing as well when you say to them, "Oh, I'm a really big Timothy Dalton fan," and people are like, "Oh," and I just don't understand why. I really don't understand why. The only thing I think we should be going about is the fact that he didn't get more movies, and obviously we know why. But it's such a shame, and for me, it will always be a shame that we didn't see more Timothy Dalton movies.
I absolutely love him. I think it's hard to discuss about him without being biased. Living Daylights was the first Bond film I saw at the cinema. Living Daylights is possibly one of my favourite films. They're my favourite Bond films. License to Kill, I've always really liked. It's really shot up my list in recent years, particularly doing this podcast, given that the rest of really 007 are absolutely obsessed with it. But I like that, coming back to it. Yeah, I just think those two films really stand out as being absolutely grounded. And there's something great about the fact that Timothy Dalton had really wanted to make this his own, but also his own interpretation of this character. But and going back to the source material, which is everyone says, everyone does it every other few years. Everyone talks about, we've gone back to the Fleming. But obviously the fact that he read them all, and I think that he's a much more kind of interior Bond than since Connery, really. I think a Bond who is quiet and is prepared to sit in silence and just offer a look rather than constantly kind of regurgitating kind of in some occasions some really terrible dialogue. But I think Dalton is the best actor to play Bond. I think is he a bigger star than Connery? No, I think Connery he's a great actor, but he has absolute star quality. Dalton is much more low key. He holds the screen, I think, almost as well as Connery, but Connery has that edge. He has movie star charisma and charm, and I think that you can't buy that. But Dalton, absolutely brilliant. The two films, absolutely love.
So they wanted change.
They want to change.
So how do you give it to them?
Well, the Bond movies are fantasies, but I think in order to enjoy the fantasy, you've got to hold into the reality. And I was very, very influenced as a young kid by the movies of Sean Connery, by Dr. No and From Russia with Love and Goldfinger. And so I wanted to bring, or at least be able to contribute a sense of reality, a sense of involvement, a sense of excitement, hopefully some danger and possibly some risk.
How tough is it though to project that in a film where you might be overwhelmed by the technology and all that sort of stuff? You have to fight hard for your corner, don't you, in a sense?
You do have to fight hard for your corner. And although Cubby did want to bring the movies back to something more akin to the original, it was by no means a unanimous or an overwhelming decision.
Was it not?
No. Everybody has their opinions about a Bond.
Yes, that's true.
You cannot escape anyone working for the movies, in the movies, or in the street who doesn't know what they want out of Bond.
Yes.
But everyone is committed. It's a wonderful group of people.
Really?
And we got on with it and perhaps put in place some building blocks for a change in the direction of the series.
Grew up very much a Roger Moore, Sean Connery, Bond-watching fan. Did see the Timothy Dalton ones, particularly Living Daylights. Brosnan was my cinema Bond, and everything kept kind of pushing forward that way. But it was just a little bit later in my love of Bond when I'd go back and explore the Living Daylights more and License to Kill more. And actually, License to Kill even though it has its moments. That was quite a part of our childhood with brothers as well. Timothy always had this reputation of only... The main headline for him was that he only did 2. That was the thing that everyone knew about Timothy. It was the thing I knew about Timothy kind of growing up. But those 2 films, goodness me, only 2 films, but so much to say. For me, they are absolutely remarkable James Bond films, both of them. The Living Daylights and the License to Kill just couldn't be any better, really, in my view. So they are terrific Bond films. The stories, the characters, the music, the action, the way they're both written is absolutely fabulous. But Timothy Dalton, wow. As the lead character, as James Bond, he is extremely James Bond, but he is also something a bit different to what we've seen before and since, I would say. I mean, the first obvious comment to make is how much he resembles that image that Ian Fleming wrote of Bond in terms of his approach to being a spy, enjoying the finer things, but also being a little bit reserved, being committed to the job, being committed to justice, and also having that ability to deliver a cold kill when needed. I didn't know it at the time because I watched the films first, but having read the books retrospectively, and I try not to really, in fact, I don't really picture any actor when I read the James Bond books, but if I were to picture one, I think it would most definitely be Timothy. He brings something that is perhaps a little less warm, and something that is serious, and none of those are in that gritty, dark kind of way that modern cinema likes to kind of really push. He is colder, but he's likeable. And he is serious, but that's out of his complete duty to his service. He's not serious because he's angry. He's serious because he's serious about his job. And I think in some ways you can't compare Timothy Dalton to Roger Moore so much, but you could perhaps to George Lazenby and to Sean Connery. And yet there's just something about Timothy Dalton that makes him different to those, in that he, of course, is extremely handsome, sharp-looking, is a physical, imposing force in every scene, the way he carries himself, how he dresses, and he does deliver jokes, and I think he delivers those well. The way that they're written well for Timothy works, but he's different to those because I think what becomes so likeable and so charming and so attractive about Timothy Dalton as James Bond is his absolute commitment to being a 00 agent, his absolute commitment to being a spy. Whereas you've got Sean, kind of looking incredibly glamorous and handsome and absolutely fantastic. George Lazenby really coming across as a warm ladies' man and all that. Now, I'm not saying Timothy Dalton doesn't actually portray some of those things. He definitely does. But I think the strength of Timothy Dalton, the thing that makes him so appealing to so many, he wins you round because of what a brilliant agent he is, how serious he is, how well he interacts with characters in his determination to get to completing the mission, to finishing the mission. And I think we see that in Living Daylights.
We've always liked him. We liked his work. We like his style. And we're sure his interpretation of James Bond will be one that we will be happy with.